What up, guys? Welcome to the BMX News Channel. Today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about some common mistakes and things I see at the skate park a lot. Every time I go to the skate park, I see a lot of kids who have a lot of problems with their bike. They're not really feeling dialed. They always get on my bike and they feel like my bike is really dialed. So I just wanted to share this video to tell you guys my techniques and the things you should do to keep your bike dialed every day. A lot of things that I come across is the headset. A lot of kids, I'll hop on their bike, be like, hey, ride my bike. I hop on it immediately. It's just loose headset. And, you know, I try to tell them how to fix it, and they, you know, I usually end up fixing it for them. Another thing is the cranks. Especially if this is a wedge style system, 3-piece spline drive. So, but a lot of the kids that I see have pinch bolt here, like 3-piece with a pinch bolt, and they usually don't tighten them up right. There's a certain method to tighten these things up, so they work right and they don't come loose. All right, guys. First thing we're going to talk about are the cranks. One method to really tightening it down is a lot of you will have a pinch bolt right here. That's what locks it onto the spindle. So, oh geez, there's a spider on my camera. Jesus. So there will be a pinch bolt right here. What you want to do to make sure it's tight and not loose is you want to loosen the pinch bolt first. Mine's wedge style system, so I don't have that. But you'll have a pinch bolt right here. What you want to do is you want to loosen that pinch bolt first. This right here, this bolt on the end, this is the bolt that actually tightens it together. Oh gosh, I hope this spider doesn't crawl in the lens. Oh boy. So what you want to do is loosen this one up first. And you can do it to one side, because if you only loosen up one side and you tighten it, it'll pull the whole thing through. But you just want to make sure that you don't have the spindle on the inside favored to one side or the other. So after you loosen this bolt right here, you want to take your Allen wrenches and you want to tighten this bolt while the pinch bolt right here is loose. You can grab it on both sides and you can move it, and you can make sure that it's tight. Kill the spider. Spider. There we go. Spider dead. Another problem that I come across a lot is loose headset. And one thing that you guys really need to know about a loose headset is the tightness in the bearings here, to where it doesn't move back and forth, is all about this top bolt. That's what sucks it all together and tightens it up, so then it's not loose. So what you want to do is you want to loosen these two bolts on the side. These are the pinch bolts. Anything you see with a gap right here is a pinch bolt. You should have, if you have a pinch bolt on your cranks down here, it should look a lot like this, just smaller. So what you want to do is you want to loosen both of these right here. And then after you loosen both of these and it's loose and not tight, you want to tighten the top cap right here. And what that does is that pulls on the fork and pulls the bearings together. Now you don't want to over tighten it. What you want to do is you want to tighten it up just enough to where it's snug but not over tight. So it might take a couple tries. I see a lot of kids over tightening them and they just go through bearings like candy. So what you really should do is you loosen these bolts right here. Here, hold on, guys. I'm going to go get a tool. I'm going to show you how it's done. Alright, guys. So I got the tool for you. So here's what you do to make sure your front headset is tight. See, mine's tight right now. A really good way that you can check to see if your headset is loose is if you sit here and you move it, it's not really going to work because you have a wheel here. So I see a lot of kids banging and hitting, trying to feel. That's not really a good way to find out. Here's how you'll find out. Flip your bike upside down. Stand on the handlebars. And move this. Because you can feel a little tick in there a lot better because you have solid ground to work off of. So what you want to do to make sure your headset is tight and tight every day is you want to check it. You want to loosen these bolts on the side first. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Of course. Alright guys, so after you get that loose, what you want to do is you want to find the right size. Usually it'll take just a socket or a ratchet. It'll take a ratchet head or some Allen wrenches will work. But what you want to do is you want to stick your tool down in there and you want to tighten this down. But you want to make sure that it's straight, obviously. So after you do that, while these are still loose, you can flip it upside down and feel it. See, I gave myself a little tick there. I can feel it. So now, I'll tighten this just a little bit more. Look straight, straight. Okay. So now, flip it back over. Remember, keeping these loose while you're doing this. Tight. So now, my headset is tight. And it's not too tight. Because if it was too tight, couldn't do that. So it's tight enough to not move, but loose enough to spin. So now you want to tighten these bolts up here. And that's what's going to lock it in position to how tight you have. So you want to do an alternating pattern to make sure this lasts. You don't want to tighten down one side too much all at one time and then go down to the next one, because that's just going to warp it, and that's just going to aid in the steer tube in your forks that goes through. It's just going to aid in that getting warped and all messed up, and that just causes your parts to wear down quicker and things not go together and come off like they should. So you want to tighten one side down, tighten the other side down, and you just want to do that back and forth. Instead of it closing more on the top and more on the bottom, because that can cause your parts to warp. Over time they can crack, and they usually crack from over tightening or just not taking care and letting it be loose for a long time. And aluminum will warp. If you leave it loose for too long and it's banging back and forth in there for too long, it'll end up warping, and then it'll never go back together, and it'll always stay loose on you. So after you have those tightened up, you're done. You don't have to mess with this. This bolt right here is just to hold that together and tighten it, so then you can tighten the pinch bolt. You flip it back over one more time and you check it. One of the most dialed headsets I've felt in a long time, and it's my bike, so really happy about that. So yeah, if you did the same thing, see, these right here are a wedge style system. So all you need to do on a wedge style system is tighten that bolt right there and you're done. The one big difference between mine and those is that this is a wedge style system with spline drive. So I do not have a sprocket bolt in here. So I don't have a drive bolt. So what that means is, to tighten these and make sure these aren't loose, is you just make sure the bolts are really tight. But the only problem is to that is it's not really easy serviceable, because both crank arms have to be pressed on. And I mean, you can press them on with the bolt. They don't really need a special tool, but in regards to getting them back off and servicing them on the street, the better style, it's easier to work on, would be the traditional 3-piece with a pinch bolt, not the wedge style system. I mean, the wedge style system looks really clean. It might be a little bit stronger, but as far as maintenance wise, it's going to be a lot harder to work on. But the other style, you have a pinch bolt right here, which is usually a 6 or 5 millimeter Allen wrench size. And what you'll do is you'll loosen that one first, You loosen that one first, and then when you loosen that, you can come over here with your 8 or whatever size, 8mm, whatever size it is, and you tighten this down while the pinch bolt is loose, and that'll pull it all together and tighten it up. Mind you, you don't want to over tighten it. You just want to, just like the headset, you want to tighten it just enough to where it's not compressing the bearings and keeping them from spinning, but at the same time it's not loose and you don't feel any ticks in it. And then after you tighten that up, you tighten the pinch bolt right here, and that's what's going to lock it into place. So there you go. Those are two of the most common issues that I see with bikes at the skate park, and really aids in not having a dialed bike. And those are two things that really makes a bike feel really loose on you. So if you do those two things, and you do them regularly and you make sure they're tight, your bike will stay really dialed for a really long time. Also, another thing that I see is they might have like a loose chain, but it's really hard to pedal. And now that could be one of two things. You either could have tightened this bolt up too much when you installed it, which has put a lot of strain on the bearings, making it to where it won't spin very good. And another thing, I see tight spots in chains, and a lot of really chains that have no oil. One thing people really need to understand is you need to keep oil on your chain. It's not a necessity, but as far as having a dialed bike that feels good every day and feels smooth, you're going to want to put grease on. You're going to want to grease your bike regularly. One of the things that you want to do to grease your bike is you want to use a white lithium grease, or pretty much an anti-seize grease would really work. Something like this Cycle Pro right here. This is a white lithium grease. It's very cheap. You can get it at your local bike shop anywhere. I don't know if they sell it at Walmart, but don't go there first. Go check your local bike shop before then. Other than that, I have this right here that came with my cranks. It's an anti-seize lube, and that works just really good. You just put it on the chain, and it'll keep your chain from getting tight spots and tightening up, because that's what happens. Your chain, when it loses its grease, it tightens up and it stiffens up. So then when it's straight, it has to make this curve around each cog. It doesn't really want to do that easily, so it feels really tight, and you get loose and tight spots, and it just makes your bike not feel dialed. One thing you do not want to do is you do not want to use WD-40. This stuff right here, I'm pretty sure it has kerosene in it. I think that's the big thing about WD-40. This stuff, for some reason, I put it in my rims, and that's when I figured out that WD-40 really is not the right stuff. Just look at that, you know, it'll work, but it really doesn't. Almost 2 days after I put them inside of these rims, I was getting really loud noises. You could hear the bearings. It's just, do not use any kind of WD or aerosol can type of grease or oil to grease your bike up, because it will not work, and in the long run it's going to wear your parts out. It'll wear everything out. Yeah, that's not very good. Another thing that I see is a lot of kids like to take the grease out of their hub. This is the hub down here, right? And this is an interpretation of a hub without a rim on it. And a lot of things I see is a lot of kids, they want to have a really loud hub. So what they do is they open it up and they clean the grease out of the inside. See, there's no grease on the inside of this. And what it does is it makes the hub louder. So one really bad problem to this is, if you do that, if you look on the inside of here, if you can see if I can show you, you can see some scoring right on the inside in the middle. And what that is from is no grease on the inside. My friend had blew the bearings out inside of here, and this thing was really loose, and he took the grease out and he wanted it loud, and over time it literally just deteriorated this thing to where it tore the inside of this up pretty bad. So what you want to do is you want to make sure these have grease. One thing I did is, I mean, it made my hub really quiet, but I have just drowned the inside of this thing with white lithium grease, and I've had it like that for about a year, and this hub, I mean, is super quiet, but at the same time it's had the protection from the grease to last a long time. This hub right here has gone through about 3 axles, but it's about 4 years old. It's one of the original animal hubs. It's a very good hub. It was the original one. But yeah, that's pretty much it. When you start taking the grease out of hubs, that's when you start having problems. That's where you start feeling little slips. That's where parts start to wear down and you start getting yourself a loose tick inside of there. That's one thing you really want to do. The chain and the hub are two things you really want to keep greased if you really want to have your bike rolling smooth and sounding really smooth. So yeah guys, if every single day or every other day or every time you feel something get loose, if you check your headset and the method that I showed you by loosening these and tightening the top and then tightening these back again, and then if you make sure your cranks are tight, grease your chain, and make sure you have adequate grease inside of your hub, your bike will be rolling and sounding smooth for a good time, and you'll get a lot of life out of your parts. So yeah, those are some things you... Jesus Christ, can you talk? If you guys follow these steps, you can keep your bike dialed for longer. This is Lad from the BMX News Channel. I'm out.